The story begins during the Vietnam War, where we see a group of young men preparing to enter the United States Marine Corps. Their training is led by a sergeant known for being strict, harsh, and intensely disciplined. Anyone who wants to survive this program needs a strong mind and even stronger resolve. Among these recruits is a young man named James, though everyone calls him Joker. Just like his nickname suggests, he has a habit of joking around at the worst possible moments. When he starts fooling around while the sergeant is speaking to another recruit, the sergeant immediately shuts it down with a punch to the stomach, reminding everyone what kind of leader they are dealing with. And when Joker is asked about his motivation for joining, his spontaneous answer only fuels the sergeant's anger, pushing him to demand that Joker show the face of a killer. Out of all the new recruits, one stands out for a different reason. Leonard seems to carry a constant smile, a habit that unintentionally looks disrespectful to the sergeant. Leonard is not trying to mock anyone, but his slow understanding makes him an easy target. The sergeant, used to handling all kinds of personalities, uses extreme methods to break that smile, and for a while, it works. And this is where their real journey begins. This is Full Metal Jacket.
7.62 millimeter. Full Metal Jacket.
2 weeks pass. The group begins to move and march with rhythm and precision. But when they are ordered to lift their rifles and rest them on their left shoulders, Leonard slips again, earning another harsh punishment.
What side was that, Private Pyle?
Later that night, the sergeant reminds them that the weapons in their hands are not just tools, but responsibilities they must think about every second of every day. The recruits go to sleep reciting their promise to care for their rifles, as if their lives depend on it. Days pass, and they enter the stage of physical training. Here, Leonard's struggle becomes even more obvious. His body is simply not ready for the intensity the others can handle. Naturally, this puts pressure on the whole squad, but the recruits stick together and help him through every step. They even hold him up when he can no longer stand on his own. As squad leader, Joker carries the responsibility of guiding those who fall behind, which almost always means Leonard. He spends his days correcting him, demonstrating tasks, and making sure Leonard understands every basic requirement of the barracks. Over time, though, something changes. Under Joker's guidance, Leonard begins improving. His progress is noticeable, consistent, and surprisingly promising. For a brief moment, even the sergeant gets to save his energy, as Leonard finally starts acting like a soldier who can keep up. One night, the sergeant carries out a surprise inspection to check on his recruits. And once again, Leonard slips up by forgetting to lock his personal drawer. But that is not the real problem. The real shock comes when the sergeant discovers something absolutely forbidden inside the barracks, a jelly donut that Leonard had taken from the mess hall. Tired of giving out the same punishment over and over, the sergeant turns to a new tactic. From now on, every time Leonard makes a mistake, the entire squad will pay for it. The others drop to the floor for push-ups while Leonard is forced to finish the donut. The sympathy they once had for him slowly fades, replaced by frustration and resentment. Eventually, the group decides to take matters into their own hands. Late at night, while Leonard is asleep, they wrap bars of soap and towels and beat him in an attempt to teach him a lesson. From that night forward, Leonard begins to act differently. His expression turns empty and distant, and he often stares into space without reacting. At one point, Joker even catches him talking to his own rifle, a moment that raises serious questions about what is happening inside Leonard's mind. The strange part is that his discipline suddenly improves. He becomes more focused, more controlled, and even manages to pass his marksmanship test. Before long, the entire group is officially declared ready for combat duty. But one night, everything takes a darker turn. Joker finds Leonard sitting alone in the bathroom, clutching his rifle. Without warning, Leonard starts shouting and performing rigid military movements.
Left shoulder! Right shoulder!
Loud enough to wake the entire barracks. When the sergeant arrives, Leonard's face shows a growing madness. The sergeant ignores the signs and orders him to stand down and return to bed. Instead, Leonard raises his weapon and shoots, killing the sergeant on the spot.
Enough attention when you were a child!
Moments later, he turns the rifle on himself. It becomes clear that the intense pressure of training has crushed him mentally, pushing him far beyond his breaking point. Years later, Joker is no longer a recruit. He is now stationed in Vietnam as a military journalist, documenting the situation on the ground. The area he is assigned to does not look like an active war zone. Joker and his partner, Rafterman, can even sit on the roadside drinking coffee without worrying about sudden attacks or incoming missiles. The only real trouble they encounter is petty crime, like the moment a thief snatches Rafterman's camera and runs off while showing off a clumsy kung fu pose. Joker and Rafterman eventually return to base for a briefing. Their commanding officer instructs Joker to produce a dramatic story, something that will convince the world that Vietnam is engulfed in relentless chaos. A story so full of suffering and daily bloodshed that America's presence appears noble, even necessary, like heroes arriving to save the helpless. In reality, the situation in Vietnam is nowhere near as dramatic as the reports suggest. The locals go about their daily routines with surprising calm, living life as usual. The real confusion often comes from the foreign troops, the American soldiers who seem more overwhelmed than the people they are supposed to protect. Joker begins to recognize the gap between what he sees and what he is being told to write, and he hesitates to turn his report into propaganda. But orders keep coming from every direction. His superior has orders from someone higher, that person has orders from the government, and the government is influenced by people who care only about power and profit. Joker has no authority to fight the system, so he eventually accepts the assignment. That night, during a fireworks celebration, things take a sudden turn. Viet Cong forces launch an attack on the American base. Whether it is a real assault or something staged does not matter, because Joker is forced to fire his full metal jacket rounds to help defend the perimeter. The next day, the situation is described as even worse. The Viet Cong are said to have taken control of several areas, and Joker and Rafterman are sent to the front lines to report on the chaos. If the brutality they find is not dramatic enough, they are encouraged to embellish it, to add whatever details will make the story more gripping for the world to consume. Their journey begins by helicopter, where they meet a soldier known as the door gunner. He casually fires at farmers, women, and children, showing no remorse toward people who are not even part of the conflict. It is Joker's first close look at how detached some soldiers have become. Once they land, Joker continues on foot toward the front. Along the way, he comes across the bodies of Vietnamese civilians who were allegedly killed by the North Vietnam Army. Many of them were ordinary workers, teachers, and farmers, people who had nothing to do with the fighting. Soon after, a local commander approaches Joker, questioning the strange combination on his gear. His helmet reads "Born to Kill," yet he wears a peace symbol pinned to his chest. The commander points out how contradictory the two ideas are, warning Joker to take his role as a soldier more seriously. When Joker finally reaches the front line, he runs into an old friend from his training days, a man everyone calls Cowboy. There is also a senior soldier named Animal Mother, whose harsh attitude immediately creates tension with Joker. Despite being in an active war zone, the atmosphere is not always as intense as expected. There are still moments when the soldiers relax and treat everything casually, like the man who poses for a photo beside the body of a Viet Cong fighter he has just killed. The next day, the squad begins pushing deeper into enemy territory, trying to force the Viet Cong back. But karma catches up quickly. Door Gunner, who once bragged about walking in the lead, ends up being the first casualty when a sudden ambush breaks out. His confidence disappears in an instant. The enemy has taken shelter inside an abandoned building. With their numbers and firepower, Joker and the others manage to drive them out. Their success earns them attention, and soon a TV crew arrives to record their stories. Each soldier shares what life on the front line has been like. Most of them claim the American mission is simply to help Vietnam defeat the rebels. They admit that civilian casualties happen, but they justify it as a result of the overwhelming pressure they endure during the fighting. And in their rare moments of downtime, some of the soldiers look for comfort in questionable ways, inviting local Vietnamese women to entertain them as a way to escape the stress of war. Before long, the frontline unit reaches a city believed to be a stronghold for the Viet Cong. The danger becomes real again when one of the soldiers is killed by a landmine, leaving Joker and the others shaken. To scout ahead, a soldier named Taylor is sent forward on his own, a decision that proves to be a terrible idea. His attempt reveals the exact location of the enemy sniper, or shooters, giving Joker's team the information they need. Without hesitation, they launch a heavy assault on the building. Animal Mother, fueled by rage after seeing his comrades fall, storms ahead alone with his heavy weapon. His reckless push creates an opening for the rest of the squad to move in and close the distance. While calling for support, Cowboy, Joker's old friend from training, is shot and killed. With no reinforcements on the way, the squad realizes they have no option except to keep advancing and finish the fight themselves. Inside the damaged building, Joker comes face to face with a Viet Cong fighter who is isolated from the rest. His hesitation costs him, and the fighter attacks first. The others eventually take her down, leaving her gravely wounded. As she lies dying, she gestures for the Americans to end her suffering. The responsibility falls on Joker. Even though he wants to resolve things in a peaceful way, the reality around him forces a different choice. In that moment, he has to become the kind of soldier he never wanted to be. With no time to think, he pulls the trigger. After that, the squad continues their advance, pushing back the remaining fighters. But history tells us how the war ends. Despite their efforts, the American forces eventually lose the conflict. So the moral of the story is, if your nickname is Joker, your best friend is a jelly donut, and your helmet says born to kill while your chest says peace, maybe life is trying to tell you to pick one personality and stick with it.